This is June, and I'm going to show you how to make baked sushi. It's very easy. The hardest part are getting ingredients, but I've done that for you. So all you have to do now are follow the directions. Very, very simple. First thing you're going to do is take the sliced mushrooms, and I buy the sliced dry mushroom rather than the whole mushrooms because it's so much faster and easier to deal with. They first have to be soaked in hot water. You can use cold water, but it takes a lot longer, and I believe in shortcuts, so I've done everything as quickly and simple as possible. So these mushrooms are a little on the large, so I'm just breaking it up. I'm going to put some warm water over this and let it sit for about 10 minutes, and that's all it takes to get these nice and soft and ready to use. Okay, so here are the mushrooms. They've been soaked and they're nice and soft. By the way, the water has all the flavor of the mushrooms in here. These are dried shiitake mushrooms, by the way. So the flavor in the water is really, really good. So if you ever make soups or broths or anything, especially for vegetarians, this is, instead of using a chicken broth, this is a great broth as a base for soups and sauces, gravies, or whatever. So reserve that, and that's good stuff there. But anyway, okay, so the mushrooms are going to be drained really, really well. It's okay if there's some moisture in the mushrooms themselves, but I tend to give it a pretty good squeeze. There's a lot of water that's in here, so we want to kind of drain that, squeeze it. And then this will be set aside and minced. Good. Okay, here is our Japanese rice. Japanese rice is quite different from your standard American rice. The grains are short grains. You can see they're probably 1/2 to 1/3 the actual length of standard American rice. And it's got a high gluten content. So when it's cooked, it's going to be sticky. Not as sticky as what they call sweet rice. Sweet rice has even a higher gluten content. But this is Japanese rice. You can find it at most all Asian stores and even some grocery stores now. The recipe calls for 4 cups of Japanese measurement cups. This is a Japanese measuring cup, and this is a standard American 8-ounce 1-cup measurement. You can see it's quite a bit smaller. And what I've done is I've measured out 4 cups of Japanese rice using this measuring cup, and then I remeasured using the standard American measuring cup, and it just turns out that 4 cups of Japanese measures equals 3 American 1-cup measurements. So that's an easy thing for you to do. You don't have to go out and buy a Japanese measuring cup. Just get your standard American cup. You're going to need 3 level cups of the Japanese rice to start with. Okay, the first thing you do when you prepare Japanese rice is to rinse it. Most of the modern day Japanese rice manufacturers have instructions on the package that no rinsing is necessary. I'm still a little bit of an old school person. I know that there aren't any impurities that we have to really wash out, but I'm so used to the practice of rinsing my rice before I use it that I still do. And so this is optional. But I just by hand. Some people say, oh, throw the rice into a sieve and run it over, run cold water over it and let the water drain through the sieve, and that does the same thing. For me, it's another thing to have to worry about. So I just, as I said, I'm the queen of shortcuts. And you see how cloudy the water gets? That's all the powder that was covering the rice that's being removed. Okay, so now you're going to drain this, and you really want to drain it really, really well, especially if you're doing stovetop rice cooking. I have always been raised using a rice cooker to prepare my rice, but if you are going to be making your rice on stovetop, you're going to have to be very careful to make sure you get most of this water out. Okay, now if you're going to be making your rice stovetop, you're going to be putting this rice into a large saucepan, and then the ratio is normally 1.5 cups of rice to 2 cups of water. This bowl contains 3 cups of rice, so you're going to double the recipe by adding 4 cups of water to this. However, I am going to use my handy dandy rice cooker. If you don't have one of these, and if you plan to make baked sushi, this is a wonderful investment. It is guaranteed success rice making. Very simple. This is going to go into the pot, and then I'm just going to measure water using the markings on the pot itself. This is Japanese measuring cups, and based on how many cups Japanese measurement that you use, it automatically tells you what the corresponding marking should be. Okay, so the rice that's been rinsed and drained is now going into my rice cooker. By the way, if you're making this stovetop, you put it into a large saucepan with the 3 cups of rice with 4 cups of water, and then you put it over on your stovetop. You cover it and let it come to a boil. Once the water comes to a boil in your saucepan, then you let it. Okay, so I'm just going to top up the water level so I make sure it gets right to that line.
It's more.
A little more?
Yeah, it's like about a 1/4 inch.
All right. Put the lid on, plug it in, and about 40 minutes from now, we'll have perfect rice.
Sometimes you have to make sure cook is showing, because I sometimes
Oh.
I do. It drops to warm, elevate to cook.
Okay.
And I make that mistake at home.
Okay.
I leave it on warm. Okay.
But when you're doing stovetop cooking, you have your saucepan with your 3 cups of washed rice and 4 cups of water. It comes to a boil, you drop the temperature, and then you let it simmer at a low temperature for 20 minutes until the water is gone. The trick with making rice stovetop is don't keep opening the lid, because every time you open the lid, all the steam comes out, and you're reducing the actual moisture that is available to steam cook the rice. So try to resist opening the pot too many times. Once you're satisfied that after 20 minutes the water's gone, take it off the heat and let it sit for another 10 minutes with the lid on. Just let it sit there. And after that, you can open it up and serve. Sort of loosen it up with a fork or a spoon just to loosen the rice, and it's ready to serve.
Okay.
Okay, the crab mixture uses imitation crab sticks. This you can get at the stores. There's different brands. I like this one because it seems to break up easier. And this is 1.1 pounds, 500 grams. So it's a lot. It's quite heavy, but it's tasty. So we're going to open up the pack. When you buy it in the stores, sometimes it's in the freezer section. If it's frozen, it'll take a day to defrost in the refrigerator. If it's not frozen, you just take it right out of the package and it's ready to use. But I just wanted to show you that the way it's packaged is that each stick is individually wrapped in plastic. Make sure you unwrap the plastic. It's very simple to unwrap the plastic because it just sort of rolls out of the plastic easily. But each piece has to be unwrapped individually. Make sure all of the plastic is removed before you cut the pieces up. The length of the stick is about 4 inches, and they're too long, so I cut them into 1-inch lengths. And then in a bowl, you put them in and you break them up with your fingers. And I've actually found that if you're using frozen crab sticks, if you don't defrost it all the way and it's still a little frosty, they break up even easier. The only thing is your hands will be very, very cold. But all of these crab sticks are have a lot of these strands in here. You want to break them up as much as possible. Something like this.
How much are you going to use for this recipe?
For this recipe, you use the entire package. So I usually go through and unwrap all of them, cut them all up, throw them in the bowl, and then I hand it to my husband and I say, okay, here, while you're watching television, you break them up. So it's sort of a family project. You can get the kids to help you out. It's easy to do. It's just a little tedious to have to do this part, but for some people they think it's fun. So find someone who thinks it's fun and have them do it. It only takes a few minutes. Okay, the recipe calls for 1 bunch of scallions or green onions. I try to get the ones that are not too fat, but if the store only has the really thick ones, it's okay, it'll still work. Now when you chop green onions, what you want to do is, at least for me, I try to do this as fast as possible because my eyes are very sensitive and I always cry, even with green onions, which are very mild. So you want to cut off the root end. And to make it really fast and easy, I cut this in half again. Now, obviously you can take these and do them a little bit at a time, but I told you before, I'm the queen of shortcuts. I don't like to do any work more than absolutely necessary, so I find that it's faster. Just grab them all together, hold them tight, and be careful not to cut your fingers. But you want to chop these and mince these pretty thin. I'm cutting them into about 1/16 of an inch thick. Not very wide because we don't want to be biting into a big piece of onion. So the smaller you can chop it, the better. Okay, this is the dried sliced shiitake mushrooms that have all been softened and drained, and I'm just going to grab the whole thing and chop them up. You want to mince this as finely as possible, but if you get larger chunks, it's no problem. By the way, the photographer is my business partner, Vicki. Thank you very much for doing the filming for me. I am doing this at my office in our little kitchenette area.
That's because I get to eat some afterwards.
Yes. Okay, I think this is good enough.